Alert payloads for the Wi-Fi Pineapple pager. Let's just dive in. So I have my virtual pager set up here. And as you can see, if I go ahead and navigate into alerts, we have 4 different categories in the 1.0 version of the Wi-Fi Pineapple pager firmware for essentially the triggers that will cause these alerts to execute automatically when these things happen in the airspace. And those are an evil AP authentication connected, a DAuth flood being detected, a new client connecting to the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and a handshake capture event. And so let's go ahead and understand how this system works by putting an example payload on and then showing you how the toggles work as well. So I'm going to go ahead and head over to the Payloads repo, which is up on GitHub /hack5/Wi-Fi Pineapple pager payloads. That's a fun one to say. And under the library, we will find alert payloads. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and show a Pineapple client connected example payload. This right here is what we're going to need to put on our Wi-Fi Pineapple. So I'll do that right over here in the virtual pager, because as it stands currently, if I come down to new client connected, it's going to say, hey, no new client connected payloads. All right, well, let's remedy that. I'm going to head over to my payloads directory, and as before, we've got our alerts user, and if we had recon payloads on here, I'd have a recon directory. But let's go into alerts and then head over to Pineapple Client Connected. All right, and so I don't see anything in here. Now, building on the concepts from the previous video, we understand that within any of the types, the type being alert, user, and recon, there are then categories. For the alerts, those categories are predefined. They are the triggers. And then you have a unique directory for each payload. And in this case, the payload is quite simply example. So let's make that directory mkdir example, head over to example, and I'm just going to use vi this time to make payload.sh. Within vi, I'm just going to get into insert mode and paste that payload. And we can see that all this payload does, just like all of the others, you have your little header where you define your title, description, author, and version. And that is indeed where the menu is going to get this name. And it might truncate because it is a little long. We, of course, start with a shebang bin bash, as these are shell scripts. Of course, any other components that belong with this payload can just live in that working directory with it. And then what we'll do is this will execute one line of Ducky script, quite simply alert, which is going to open an alert dialog. And we're going to pass it this internal variable. Now, alert payloads use internal variables just like themes and many other things use internal variables, and you can tell because they begin with $_. And I actually have all of the alert payload variables in this example payload so you can see what you can work with here. So what this is going to do is it's going to open an alert when a new client connects, and it's going to show the alert client connected summary. And what is that? Well, that is the human readable summary of the connection. Okay, similarly, we can get, say, the client's MAC address and things of that nature. So that can be really useful if then we want to do some more interactive things with that client. But for right now, let's just go ahead and demo this alert. So I will go ahead and save my file. I, of course, need to make it executable. So chmod +x payload.sh. We can see it's executable, especially if I do ls-tach-la. We see right there, executable, hooray. So now if we just scroll right back up and go into that new client connected, we'll see that we now have our example client connected. And you see this check mark? This check mark is checked. It's not only just like green, but it also has a visible check mark in there so you can tell indeed it has been checked. If I actually press A, what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle that, because unlike, say, the user payloads menu where hitting A executes the payload, this payload will execute automatically when a new client connects, when the event in the airspace occurs. So in this case, pressing A will toggle it to off. Now the check mark is on the left, or the toggle's on the left and I don't see the little check mark anymore. And I show you this because I want to demonstrate what's about to happen. And that this might be a little weird given the directory I am currently in. I'm in the example directory and it's about to get weird. So let me just cd to ... And you'll see here if I lstech la, this example directory is no longer just called example, it's called all caps disabled.example. If I ls disabled example, we'll see there's our payload.sh file. So that's something important to know, is that you can have various alert payloads and they may be in various states of being enabled or disabled. If the directory begins with all caps disabled ... then that payload will not execute when the event happens in the airspace. That won't trigger it to occur. If it doesn't have all caps disabled ... in the directory name, well then it will be running. And so I can just come up here, select it again, and now it's running. So let's see what it actually looks like when a client connects. And I'll just come back to the dashboard and you'll be able to see this. That didn't take long. So I turned on my vulnerable device. It sent out a probe looking for, in this case, Westin guest. And since I have my PineAP suite set up to mimic access points, my Wi-Fi pineapple pager responds and says, yes, I am Westin guest, because lo and behold, I've stayed at the Westin and it's in my PNL. And so now I'll get my alert. It's going to pop up and it'll say client, and then the MAC address of the client connected to SSID, the SSID that in this case, my phone thinks it's connected to. And there you go. That's how alert works. And here's the fun thing. This works the same with any of the other alert payloads. So if you come into deauth flood detected, you'll see this example also shows, the human readable message, but also here are all of the other internal variables that you can use. So using this, you can actually take advantage of the Ducky script to then also perform additional actions in addition to just being notified of this occurring. So I had shown you that within our Pineapple client connected example, where I display all of the internal variables, one of those variables here is the connected client MAC address. And these variables they're verbose because they're trying to be very explicit what they are. So it should be pretty obvious. So if I wanted to, I could use some of the other Ducky script at my disposal to then, for instance, given that I have that variable for the MAC address of the client, I could use the command find client IP, and then I would pass it this variable. It's not going to work interactively. This, of course, needs to be in your alert payload within its context. But when that payload executes, it's given all of those environment variables. And so if we were to use the Ducky script, find client IP, pass it the MAC address, which is the parameter. And as I showed last time, all you have to do to find out what those parameters are is actually just run the command, and you'll see right here you get the usage. And what this command is going to do, find client IP, very well named, you pass it a MAC address, you optionally pass it a timeout, and it's going to find out the IP address on your Wi-Fi Pineapple pager of that client. And now gears turning, we're like, okay, great. I know that client associated. I got my little pop-up alert. I now can take this a little further. Maybe I want to pass this over to Nmap if I could type correctly. That's a couple of typos, but there we go. We got there. And so if I wanted to, I can start building on this, and I can't wait to see what you build with this. So this is just the real quick lowdown on alert payloads, and you can find some examples to get started over at the Wi-Fi Pineapple pager payload repository. Links down there. I'll see you guys in the community.